Welcome. Thanks for joining us for the conference. I'm Jessica Evans from Evans Family Farm, located in central North Carolina. Today, I'm going to be talking about best practices for managing your money and saving time. Two kind of important things for running a successful on-farm or farm-based business. A little bit about myself. So I come from not an agricultural background. My professional background is as a high school educator. I taught high school for about 8 years, but always had a passion for food, being kind of your first source of health. Always grew up with that perspective. Started doing a little bit of a backyard kind of homestead in Southern California, where my husband and I are originally from, and it just kind of grew from there. So we had this vision of doing this on a bigger scale and wanting to leave Southern California for just a different pace of life, and ended up here. And we're about 45 minutes north of Charlotte in what's called the Piedmont area of North Carolina. And we do pasture-based livestock, so we raise poultry. So it's chicken and turkeys, pork, lamb, beef, and eggs, and we direct market all that to our customers. We do a little bit of wholesale, primarily with eggs, and that's kind of the scale we're at now. We started our farm in 2016, always with a vision of direct marketing, and it's just kind of grown from there. Purchased our home and our original kind of 10-acre farm, and then this last couple of years have definitely outgrown our growing capacity, and we're fortunate enough last year to purchase the surrounding 70 acres and lease another 30. So we will be going from 10 acres plus some offsite lease land to all contiguous 110 acres that we'll be managing this year with our livestock. So that's super exciting and scary. But when it comes to the business side of things, which we'll delve into a little bit later, it's a little less scary when you know that your numbers work. So we started pretty small on the farm. We started with kind of a few, I guess just a little bit for ourselves. Back in Southern California, we had some egg-laying hens and some dairy goats, and we did our first batch of meat birds just for ourselves. And now, I guess this last scale we're at, we do about 4,000 of poultry a year. We finish about 2 to 3 beef on our own, and we partner with other farms to keep our beef inventory up, because on 10 acres, as many of you may know, we can't grow as much beef as we can sell. So from 2016 till now, we've had some huge growth, as I explained kind of in our numbers. And our goal has always been to continue to grow and to continue to grow to a point where we can support ourselves. As many of you may know, starting an agricultural-based startup business is a lot longer turnaround than many other startup businesses. So we were fortunate when we moved out here that both my husband and I could be on farm full-time for about a year. That let us really kind of kickstart things and add some infrastructure, and I would kind of do a little trial and error on where we were going, I guess, long term with the business, and realized that was going to take a little bit longer than we anticipated to support ourselves full time on the farm. So my husband is an electrical contractor. He works off farm full time. He went back to work, and I continue to manage the farm full time for the last 4 years. And our goal is now to bring him back on farm. And again, that goal has always been in mind, to match kind of our growth, our desires with our numbers. And sometimes that means dropping or adding a few different enterprises. So like we've experimented with heritage breeds of poultry or heritage breeds of pigs, and feeling out our customer base as well. It took us a few years to really find kind of who our ideal customer was, like the demographics of that customer, so that we could focus our marketing towards that person. Also kind of what area our customers were in. We're kind of halfway between Charlotte and Winston-Salem, North Carolina, are our biggest metropolitan areas. And those are primarily where our customer base is. I want to supply food to my local community, but I also need to find the ideal buyer for my product as well. So we do have to travel a little bit for that. I know for some of you that's not as far as many people travel into urban areas, but definitely finding those key markets and then adjusting what we're selling. So like I said, we tried heritage breeds before, and although I love doing heritage breeds, I love the demeanor of the animals and the flavor of the meat. Again, I went back to running the numbers, and our customers just don't value it enough with their pocketbooks. I mean, they may value it with their mouths. They may say they love heritage breeds, they love that idea, but when it comes to paying a few extra dollars per pound for that product, because it takes so much longer to grow out, they kind of weren't willing to fork that over. So again, we had to match our production with what our customers were looking for as well. My husband and I don't come from an agricultural background, so when it came to starting our farm, we had always been entrepreneurs. We'd started and ran our own businesses for about 15 years before we moved out to North Carolina, and came to the farm again with that perspective. Having a business plan, crunching numbers before we kind of made the jump into a new enterprise, or to kind of plan our growth. Like, what does that look like if we need to sell, 5,000 head of chicken. Well, how do we go back and market that? How do we cut our costs? Because that's really the easiest way to turn a bigger profit, is to decrease your overhead. So in labor, so how do we make things simpler labor-wise? How do we buy feed or supplies or infrastructure stuff in bulk so that that cost goes down as well? Or having things that we can use for multiple enterprises divides that cost as well. So for example, when it came to purchasing the additional land, we have to be able to use that land for as many species as possible, because that then divides that land payment over multiple species instead of it just being for grazing cattle, for example. So I talked about being flexible for our market to meet what our customer desires, but also staying true to kind of our core value, which is definitely regenerative agriculture at the heart of things. So there is a give and take, but there's also kind of being true to who you are. So even when it came, for example, to partnering with another farm for beef production, we don't buy any finished animal from a farm we haven't stepped foot on. We don't know those farmers personally. We're not going to the sale barn to buy something totally unknown. We want to know the animal's history. We want to know that farm's practices. We want to know, their health history, their herd history, because those are things that are important to us. And we found that our customer is less particular about everything coming directly from the ground that we own to transparency. So transparency has always been a core value for us. We want our customers to completely understand where their food is coming from, what it's been fed, what type of animal it was, how it lived, was it processed humanely. And we find that transparency is really more important to our customer than necessarily us being the primary ones that grow or calf or lamb that particular animal or hatch that egg. They just want to know. They want to be in the know, and we're fully transparent about that. And supporting practices that are regenerative is really important to us. So to us, that means, does our farming practice improve our land year after year? Does it improve the welfare of the animal? Does it build soil? Does it sequester carbon? I mean, you could throw out all those big terms in there. Some of your customers are going to be hip to that. Some are going to get glazed over a little bit when you get too technical. But for us, as much as we run the numbers for new enterprises, we always have to stay true to that. And some of the things that have helped us get there is kind of our goal setting too. We kind of sit down each year, end of year, when things slow down in the winter. We do most of what we do seasonally. So the only animals that we overwinter are our sheep flock. This year we will overwinter a few stocker cattle, and then our egg layers. So pigs, we don't have breeding stock. We only do stockers for our pigs. We don't do, meat birds overwinter because they can't be out on pasture. And again, that's staying true to that goal of pasture raised and regenerating the landscape. You just can't do that in winter. So we grow everything seasonally, which lets us slow down also and have a little seasonality to our lifestyle as well. So I love farming, but you are, as many of you know, very married to your farm for about 9 months out of the year. And it's nice to have a break, to be able to travel, to spend time with family. There's that seasonality is good for not just our land, but for our personal lives as well. Because again, if many of you that are in farming would know, you just get swept up in the to-do list of the season and you kind of don't look at those overarching goals sometimes. So our goals have, we sit down each year, evaluate where are we at, does it line up with the goals that we set last year, not just sustainably, but regeneratively, like to continue to turn a profit, to continue to even employ members of our community, to bring others into agriculture. So we have some part-time employees this year. But some of those are young people that we're teaching about farming and why what we do is different, and teaching them, kind of from the ground up. It takes a little bit of extra time, but you find those good employees, it's worth it. I got a 19-year-old girl that I've been teaching how to back up a trailer, which is a really important farm skill, but something she's never done before, or teaching her how to castrate animals or pull lambs, or, giving that person a variety of things to do so that they understand the full spectrum also means that I don't always have to be boots on the ground, and that's part of our growth as well. If we want to grow the farm, I can't be the ones doing everything as well. I have to be able to step into a managerial type role to help grow the business, because the growing, as many say, is the easy part. It's the selling that could be a little bit trickier. And if I don't have time to do that marketing and selling, our business is not going to grow no matter how much time I spend in the field. The only way we can meet those goals is knowing our numbers. So again, coming to farming from a business perspective as an entrepreneur, we need to know those numbers. And having good accounting software, having a good CPA also are huge tools in doing that. So right now we only use a CPA really for our tax purposes. Again, it's something that my time is better spent doing something else other than learning how to do business taxes in our state. So we have somebody do our taxes each year, but having those numbers using an accounting software throughout the year makes that job easier also on our CPA, so we don't have to pay her as much as well, as much as I love her and want to support her. And so many tools are so important to that. We love QuickBooks. We've always used it as business owners. It's the easy, really easy accounting software. Having something else do the numbers for me, that's an easy way to do it, has been super essential because, again, my time is better spent doing something else, something that grows my business. So if I can have an easy button on my accounting software or integrate my accounting software to our web program, for example, our point of sale system, I can import and export data. Makes it super easy. So QuickBooks software, if none of you are using it, it can link to our bank accounts and our credit cards, so I can even input everything, even by the enterprise. So if I go to Tractor Supply and I buy some veterinary medicine and some feed or some shavings, I can split that right away. It goes into the various enterprises, and I can track if we're on budget, over budget, under budget, and it kind of helps us make decisions throughout the season by having that data. It takes a little bit to set up, but once it's set up, once it's integrated, it's just so easy. And that, again, lets me do my strengths, which are marketing or managing employees or, doing some stuff out in the field instead of ticking away on the computer, which is not my favorite thing to do. If it wasn't easy, I wouldn't do it, basically, and I would not have the data that I need to help our business grow and evaluate each enterprise kind of as we come along. If I'm not on budget, if I'm not checking those numbers, they quickly get out of hand because it's easy to be like, oh, I need this tool, I need that tool, I need more of this or less of that, shopping those things around to make sure that we're on budget as we go. So when we purchased that extra land this year, we used a Farm Service Agency or FSA loan for a big part of that purchase. And if any of you have looked into those, or if you haven't looked into those, they're amazing. The rates are far lower than any land loans you could ever find, but you do have to qualify for them. And the paperwork can be pretty intimidating. But if you know your numbers, if you have your accounting software kind of lined up, it's pretty easy. It's all information you really should know. So if you start looking at that application, you reach out to your FSA agent if you're looking to purchase land, or for an operating loan. Again, their interest rates are stupid low, 0 down payment pretty much, which again is a huge bonus when buying land or buying infrastructure. And if you look at that and realize there's information you don't know, that should be kind of a red flag, because again, not knowing those numbers makes it really easy to not be turning a profit, to stay in the red each year. Help yourself stay on track, because that money in farming can quickly get away from you, and it lets you pivot as you go along. If you realize, you're at the 6 months mark in the year and you're not at 50% of your income or close to that, or where you were last year. So having software that does that for you, having accounting software so you can check where you're at in comparison, looking at, all right, well, what enterprise is not working? What enterprise is maybe bleeding? Am I spending 50% of my labor on the enterprise that only brings me 15% of my income? Maybe that needs to get cut out. Maybe that needs to be sold or partnered with, or have an intern take it over. If I didn't know that data right away, or I didn't have a way to look into that data, I wouldn't be able to pivot maybe until the end of the year when I kind of have more losses that I could have prevented. And that's, again, going to help me in my long-term goal. We purchased 70 acres. That's a big land payment that we have due every year. And so we need to make sure that our enterprises are leading us to a way where we're going to not be in the red, where we're going to make that land payment, that tax payment over the course of the following years. And that's going to help us grow. A huge part of staying financially viable is taxes. Knowing our tax requirements, knowing what the tax laws are. Again, a lot of times that's bringing in a CPA, or once you get your business rolling as a registered, entity, it'll tell you kind of what kind of taxes you have to pay. Once you have a CPA, they'll tell you if you need to pay quarterly, what sales tax fall into, payroll taxes, things like that. And again, just like having an integrated accounting software, and sometimes in the accounting software, there's tax features too that will help you keep track of those expenses to make sure they're paying on time. For example, my payroll taxes through QuickBooks, I have them set up to auto pay because, again, I will not remember to do it. I have so much else going on. Animals get out and things get chaotic, or, you had a customer issue and those little things fall by the wayside. In the state of North Carolina, food sales tax is different than, for example, if we have a retail item. So having something that tracks that for us. And we've been fortunate with that integration with Barn to Door that we've been using. That was a new integration that they came out this year, having a couple different tax systems that can integrate with the software that will pull those numbers for me, pay them automatically, send me email reminders, things like that. So it's one thing to know that like, oh, that data is going into QuickBooks for me. But it's another thing to pause, put those on your calendar. Schedule yourself like an hour like you would an appointment, or 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever it's going to take you to review some of those numbers at multiple points throughout the year, not just waiting for your year-end taxes, because it's really easy for things to sneak up on you, especially this year, 2021. We're seeing crazy inflation on a lot of things that we as farmers rely on, feed, corn, building materials, all those things that are really going to affect our bottom line. And if we don't stay on top of them and we don't adjust our prices, mid-year to make up for that, we don't need to be apologetic about making a living. We don't get floored by our doctor's price or our CPA's price or our lawyer's prices. They're a professional, they get paid a professional wage. We as farmers should also expect that, plan for that, put that into our numbers. So we did raise prices this year in kind of mid-season, and we could easily explain that to a customer if they questioned it, but for the most part, they don't. We really haven't had a lot of customer pushback, or if we did, it was as simple as like, hey, costs have gone up for us this year. There's a little more cost per pound on this particular item. And you can make sure you're increasing that enough per item. Again, by having a spreadsheet or knowing those numbers, you can make sure that you're adjusting that just enough. We don't need to gouge our customers, but I still need to make a living wage. We always go for 2xing our costs. So if my cost on a whole chicken, for example, is maybe $12, then I need to sell that whole chicken for $24. That's my goal. Now, if I have more labor in that whole chicken because I cut it up, I'm going to increase that a little bit and make sure, again, my cuts or my losses, if we don't sell a lot of chicken carcasses, for example, that my prices per cut add up to that total value of chicken, so I'm not eating any losses. And if I didn't have a way to track that through automated software, through spreadsheets, things like that, that would be a much harder thing to do. And sometimes it's just sitting down with a pencil and paper. It's easy to kind of calculate it out or play with those numbers a little bit. And all of that stuff, again, is going to help us grow, help our vision for the future. So our goals for the coming years as we expand on this land purchase are definitely we're adding our first cattle herd this year. So we'll be growing 100% of our own beef starting in 2022. Everything that we sell will be beef grown here on Evans Family Farm. We're going to continue to grow our sheep flock. We're also going to continue to add some agritourism and just some kind of in-person things on the farm. That's something that we love to do. I love hosting people out here on the farm. This last summer, we did our first session of farm camp. So we did a summer camp program for kids here on the farm. We kind of borrowed that idea from another kind of farm entrepreneur that we follow. Me having an education background, I thought that would be perfect. Also knowing that our major selling areas, our metropolitan areas are 45 minutes in either direction, and I really wanted to tie in to our local customer base. So finding something like that, a farm camp, most of those people that come to our farm camp are a little more local. So it gives us a little more local exposure to a potential customer base. And again, that was hugely profitable because we didn't have, I didn't have 12 months to finish this cow before I had it by the retail cut, sold it by the ribeye and ground beef. I spent a few months, marketing camp and planning camp, and we had employees and there was some overhead costs to that, but the payments for that came right away. There really wasn't a long ROI or return on investment for farm camp. We loved it. It went really well. It definitely gives us goals for the future for doing some more on-farm events. Also, again, bringing customer bases to the farm, having them have a personal connection with us and their food, but to continue to grow, to support our farm, to support our family. It ties back into all of those overarching goals and investing in that youth. So the farm camp was also a huge piece of teaching kids about farming, having kids have a connection to their food. 99% of the kids that came to our farm camp have never seen a live farm animal. I mean, they've never held a chicken. That was the most popular thing at farm camp, was to pick up the egg layers and just hold them, or go pet the baby chicks. That was their absolutely favorite thing to do. And so just getting kids, again, a connection with that food. And we were honest with them. I mean, they're little kids. We didn't butcher animals in front of them, but they knew what the meat birds were for, why we raise the chicken, why we give that chicken a really good life, why we choose the style of farming that we do. And hopefully, again, they share that with their families or their parents, so that becomes important to them, and also brings more kids, hopefully, into the future of agriculture, too. And growing farm partnerships is another huge thing. We don't do any produce on our farm. Customers want convenience. They want a one-stop shop. So as we develop partnerships with produce farms, for example, during the summer, if we could offer that to our customers, the more that we offer, the more they don't feel like they have to shop around, they can just shop with us, and we become kind of more a bigger part of their life, they have that connection to us, and that kind of becomes a deep-rooted customer connection that can grow over time. Our subscription program has also grown over the last year. I mean, there's ebbs and flows just like anything, but we definitely love our subscription customers, value them because they're kind of a prepaid, they're an easy sale, so we're always giving perks to them. Like we sent holiday gifts this year, which is just merch. Again, it's advertising. It's got our brand name on it. And maybe it cost me, I don't know, $10, $15 to have these mugs printed, but I sent one to all of our subscription box customers as a thank you, as a reward, because again, that just renewed kind of guaranteed income each month is important. It's important to our growth and our sales and our marketing. Well, I think that kind of wraps up most of our vision and what we've talked about. We covered a lot of information. If you have any questions for me, feel free to reach out. You can find us at evansfamilyfarm.com. On social media, we are Evans Family Farm NC, both on Facebook and Instagram. Feel free to reach out. You can reach me at jessica@evansfamilyfarm.com also. Email me with any questions. I love sharing what we've learned the hard way and the easy way. Happy to share our failures as well as our successes. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for your time. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the conference this year. Best of luck in your farming adventures.